a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but the cutie pie.
I kept coughing. Okay. Welcome to the Wheels and Hours show. I am your host, Michael Phelps from the Wheels and Hours group. As I always state, that Wheels and Hours group is the educational group, fundamental group that talks about social injustice, political, um, economical, mental health. We talk about all different things. We're here to talk about problems as well as talk about solutions. As I said once before, my name is Michael Phelps from the Wheels and Hour Show. I'm gonna let all the kings and queens introduce themselves.
Marion Bailey.
Like Jolly.
Okay.
Here, got a couple hot topics from the week. At least one person was killed and 21 others injured, including children, wounded at a shooting in Kansas City at the Chiefs Super Bowl victory rally. Yeah, Children's Mercy Hospital reported that they treated 12 patients from that rally between the ages of 6 and 15, 9 of which were shot. Children that were shot. One person died. That person, authorities didn't release the name, but the radio station did. KKFI announced that DJ Lisa Lopez was killed. Keep in mind, she was there with her nieces, nephews. She was working, DJing, doing her thing, had family there at the event. So far, there's 3 people that are arrested in connection with this, 2 of which are juveniles. So, yeah. A Delta Airlines flight headed to Detroit returned back to Amsterdam Tuesday because passengers reported that maggots fell from the overhead bin after someone packed rotten fish in their luggage.
Wow.
Like they didn't smell that though, right? Right from the jump. Nebraska's Republican governor on Friday reiterated his rejection for $18 million in federal funding to help feed children who might not otherwise have food over the summer. This is that EBT summer program. Nebraska is not participating in that. And I just wanted to put that out there because there is a need. And so just because the governor didn't sign off on it, the need still remains. And there's going to be families that will need the help this summer, churches, friends, family, community. It's going to be a need there. It's officially fish fry season for those that are observing Lent. Area churches and businesses are ramping up for that. Have any of you ever been to St. Vincent de Paul's fish fry? So, yes, yeah. They have like 1,000 people that go every Friday. So I went like 5 years ago. I haven't been in a while. So I went like 5 years ago. And in the line, these people have coolers of beer. Like they was like, you want a limerita? Like they are in line for the church fish fry. Lit. It is an entire experience.
Nasty serve wine.
They said, yes, it is an experience. And someone invited me and I was like, what are we doing here? Thousands of people. I mean, fish was good, but it was just like, oh, this is what we're doing. So interesting. Today's topic, what did we have growing up that our children need more of today? You want me to read the list off? Because we had a couple of things that were out there. We had take your elbows off the table, don't talk with your mouth full, look people in the eye when they're speaking to you and when you're speaking to them, saying yes sir and no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, and keep your elbows off the table as you eat. What are some other things?
I know one that stuck out is one we was taught to, when you speak to somebody, speak with your head up and look them dead in the eyes, because it produces confidence in the child and in the adult, because sometimes kids talk with their head down like they're not confident in themselves.
Yeah, intimidating.
Yeah. Whatever. So that was one of the things that we had learned growing up.
Was there anything about blessing the food?
I like the blessing the food. That wasn't on there. That's why I said we're just gonna throw in some things, because you know what else wasn't on there that I wish that I pulled from my parents to my children would be, don't eat in your room.
Yeah.
I didn't bring that one. We could not eat around the house. You could only eat in the kitchen. And what I do is, if the child is maybe 5, 6, 7, they can't come out the kitchen or the dining room. That's just for anybody. Your kid comes over, I'm like, you got to stay right there, because they just little crumb snatchers. Right. But I got teenagers, so no big deal. They're fine. They can eat in the room. No, I find myself every couple of days, where are the dishes? Where's the strainer? What are you doing? Clean that. Bring that out. Like it has now become a headache for me every few days to remind someone to clean up. Right. Why do you have a cup right there? Right. Why couldn't that make the dishwasher? Like, what is going on here? And I'm like, dang, I wasn't raised like that. Right. We could not bring food around the house. We couldn't cook in the middle of the night. Charles will make pancakes at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Got up, I'm hungry, and I can smell, what is going on down there? Oh, I just made some pancakes. The kitchen was closed at a certain time when I was growing up, and I wish I had brought that over,
So
you know.
here's the question. Why was that rule? And why do you think it was a rule that your parents had?
I would say because my mother, God bless her, is OCD to the max.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything has to be in a place very neat and extremely clean,
Mm-hmm.
to the max. So that one cup, so like when like her glasses, everything is boom. So if that glass wasn't there and it was like out of place or in a room, she's looking for it. What is going on? Where is this at? What is that? And I'm not like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna say, oh my God, there's 4 cups that are missing. There's 2 spoons. Where are those? I'm not like that. So I'm just like, okay, they'll be fine. They're older. They should be more responsible. But no.
Okay. So your parents' reasoning and your reasoning is different. Even though your parents didn't allow it, there's a reason why they didn't allow it because of being OCD. You allow it because you're not like that, but then you also realize that it's still an issue.
Right. I should.
Even with allowing it, because okay, now they're leaving dishes all over the house. You're always having to look for something and not being responsible. Even though you're extending them the privilege of being able to do that,
They don't
they're kind of
respect
taking
the privilege.
advantage and
Right.
not cleaning up after themselves. So you see, so if I'm understanding you correctly, your reason for wishing that you had carried that over is because of the fact that they're not being very responsible with having that privilege versus not carrying it over for the purposes that your mom had it in place.
Right.
Because she was,
Yeah. They don't realize that it's a
Yeah.
privilege.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, they didn't grow up with plastic on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't, there was a living room that we couldn't sit in.
Yeah.
And my mother is actually still like that to this day.
Mm-hmm.
That is for entertaining. That is not for you children.
Yeah.
You go to a family room or
Right.
go to a different spot in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wasn't like that. No, they can sit here. The kids can come in this room, this type of thing. I'm grateful that there's 2 living rooms in the house I'm in now so that they do have their own area,
Right.
because they will. They'll just lay on across the couch and just, no, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Like, we want to take care of this.
Right. So then again, oh, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So why do you think parents had plastic on the furniture?
To preserve.
To
preserve. I would have kept the lining in the house.
Yeah.
I thought that was so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I walking in your house and there's a liner from the front door through? I used to hate that at my grandma's house.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
What is this? I hate that liner.
You talking about the runners?
Yes! I used to hate that. Absolutely not. I'm not having that in my house. Now I look at my rug and I'm like, oh no, we got to get a new rug. We got to get.
Which is the reason that was the reason for the runners. And see, and the reason why, that's why I keep asking those questions.
Yeah.
Is because when we talk about, as we're talking about things that were then that we can use now, or things that were then that maybe we can't, that maybe we shouldn't even include now, you always have to look at the why. Okay, well, why was it in place? That because that why always answers the question.
It does.
Okay, if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. Okay, if it doesn't make sense, remove it.
For
If
sure.
it does make sense, by all means, carry it over.
Right. Right.
One of the things, particularly I'm dealing with the age thing right now, is that the whole process of liners. Look at the ones that went from a little rug to the plastic.
The plastic is what I hated.
All right, so
Yeah.
because what that did is it really altered. Once you moved it, there was always a difference in the
Oh,
the
yeah.
rug,
Yeah, and it
you
would have
could
those little
move it
holes
around.
in it.
Yeah, so that's but that mostly all of that culture was emanated through television, as opposed to observing a principal need yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So look at the lines and go, oh, we should do that. So that commercialism of the TV calls for a tremendous shift in living values and traditions.
I guess what I understood about it, especially when it came to putting plastic on furniture, is that your parents worked really hard and probably used the last dime to purchase that furniture. And they're like, look, we can't afford to be rebuying this. We want it to last, so therefore, we're going to put plastic on it. Or maybe you couldn't afford to have somebody come in and clean carpets. So you're like, you know what? We're going to have runners going throughout the house. You know, because, or, you know, even got to a point where, hey, take your shoes off at the front door. Because you don't want people walking through your house with dirty shoes, and dirtying up your carpets. That, you know, that was my understanding.
And a lot of it was like, you know, it's implementing discipline. And sometimes I think discipline is lacking in today's children that they should have now, that they should have gotten now what we had then. I think the kids today doesn't have that discipline. I think that's one of the biggest things, because some kids today are more entitled. So that entitlement comes from the lack of discipline within the home. And when there's discipline, like knowing that we didn't like the fact that there was a dining room table that it was all decorated out and nobody can sit at it. Every day you walk past and looked at it. And then when your mom and dad went home, you're gonna eat there, but you're gonna hurry and clean it back up, and put it back in order. You know, it was kind of like this thing. I was talking about. There was things like when growing up, they had candles in the house, and they had decorative candles all around the house. None of them was lit; they were just decorative. And then you had that one ugly candle that sat on the table that was burnt up. And you always said, what candle really made a significance in the home? Is it the ones that's decorating just to show and look, or is it one that actually was being utilized? So those are the things that I think kids don't get the full understanding of when we talk about these things. That's why we came up with the subject matter, because it's going to teach us, and it's going to branch us out from one way of thinking to another way of thinking. So, what is your way of thinking on the subject matter? Because this is really a deep subject matter, because I think discipline is really lacking in our community, lacking in our homes, lacking as far as with one another. I think the discipline part is wrong. It's lacking.
I think a lot of it is culturalization. To me, though, the problem of the majority of our culturalization has been exposed through television. And as far as ethnicities are concerned, it's only been within a reasonable amount of time. There's been enough distribution of cultural programming that you can either distinguish the different habits or traditions of the culture, or you don't recognize them at all. You know, eating, to me, particularly in African American communities, because of the restrictions that were placed outside of the home, they automatically cause restrictions inside the home, i.e., what time you have to go to work, if you have a job, is it more important to have everybody eating at the table at one particular time, showing the family support, as opposed to us having to work or different times of the day or those other kind of things. I think that's one of the major confusions that I see that television implemented. Like I said, I remember from 1957 when the television came in. For some cultures to watch the television and not see their culture and look at the other kinds of things that these old cultures do, i.e. I Love Lucy and those kinds of things. And I use that show as when we talked about before about sleeping in the beds, having to fill in the bed or whatever, even if you're married. I think that those kinds of culturalizations cause us not really to be able to do traditional kinds of things that we think that are proper, because so much of those things around us deviate from that, And it makes it easy to meet some people feel inadequate because they go over to somebody else's house and they don't do that. Well, I got to do that and all those kinds of concerns. Those cause issues.
So, can I ask you, how do you combat the television theory? Because because you bring that up often and let us know about the television, how it influenced a lot of the change of the behaviors. How do we combat the television theory because rationalizing this information and utilizing it to its full potential? What do we do as a collective to combat television's view versus what can really help our community thrive?
The control of the whole production industry being so controlled under one ethnicity doesn't even allow for us to be in the position to debate about certain things because so many things are standardized. When you see a program, name me a ongoing program right now. I don't watch television. I shouldn't even ask this question. I mean, I need to know. But I to me, there's no true representation ethnicity-wise on television to look at it as being a positive influence more so than what I recognize. That's why I don't look anymore as a negative influence.
Okay. I'm gonna tell you because just by what you just said, which makes a lot of sense. But to combat the television, that means parents need to be more parents again.
Right.
And so I think that instead of putting a television or a tablet or a phone in front of a kid's hand to allow it to raise your children, I think parents need to turn back around and start raising their own children instead of allowing these things to do so, and then wonder why we're sitting back. Because they said the mere silence of the people is just as deadly as those who pull the trigger. If parents are sitting on their hands and not implementing discipline, implementing structure, implementing things that are and putting things in place in the home for the child to develop properly, then guess what we're gonna have? Television is just gonna come in and dictate how our children is going to be raised or how they're being raised. That's what we're having a problem with. So to combat that, parents need to get back into parenting. What would y'all think?
I think it's too late.
I don't think it's too late. I just think it needs to be in moderation. I mean, I don't think we can't have it and then we pull it away. Oh, you don't get any of it.
Inconsistent.
Yeah. So I mean, I just feel like we can, limit the time. Like over the summer, do some book reports. Just because they're out of school doesn't mean that they can't do a book report.
Or go outside and learn to be. When we was growing up, our growth and development processes was we didn't have a lot. We didn't have the TVs. We didn't have the VCR. All of us didn't have all those things. Guess what we did? Guess what was our entertainment? We was outside being creative.
Oh, absolutely.
We created our own things. That's why back in the days, innovation was very prudent back then, because when you outside, you're being innovative. You're creating things. I'm talking. We used to sit down and create guns with rubber bands and wood and nails and clothespins. Clothespin and using bottle tops off the cans. We created slingshots out of rubber bands. We made we used shingles like they was boomerangs.
And we weren't overweight either.
Yeah, we weren't overweight.
We used bicycle rims as basketball hoops.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you would be at least 10 miles from your home and still make it back before the street lights come on.
And that was one of the things that the kids they ain't implement today. They don't come home when the street lights come on. They ain't even outside, so they're already in the home.
But see, that's what I was going to say. I got a hooper, so like one of mine will be always at a goal hooping. But yeah, I mean, it's a big difference. I don't see my kids walking for 5-6 miles. We would just be out.
Oh yeah,
and hit the corner store and gone.
When we was growing up, going to school, it was snow this high. We still had to walk through the snow and get to school. There was no parents carrying us out to the school. We wasn't. They told kids in the neighborhood, y'all stick together. Remember that? we had to stick together. We had to walk together. They said, "Don't you leave each other.
Don't
Y'all
leave
come."
nobody.
You know, especially if you have brothers and sisters and big families. Hey, you don't leave nobody. If you fight, y'all fight. That was the rule when we was growing up. That's the things kids don't have today. You know, nowadays the kids live right across the street from each other, and their cousins, first cousin, second cousin, third cousin, they don't even talk to each other.
But one of the things I think that really caused it, I think it was always purposeful, is the busing of kids to school. You know, as opposed to letting them go to school in their own communities. Here again, I deal with ethnicity.
Yeah.
When we deal with this, and we are always at a disadvantage in anything that happens in those kinds of ways. I see them as being disadvantages, where there should be no reason that just because they think it's a good thing to do, that we have to wake kids up 2.5 hours earlier than they would be so they can get bused all the way across town talking about integrating schools.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those kinds of political issues that we don't have any control over, because we can't control the votes anyway. I've always seen those as being, I'll say, uncivilized. A lot of things that we have to do in order to be congruent with the system, to me, are.
And they were treated horribly.
Oh, yes.
So they were put on those buses, excuse me, taken, you know, however far away from their home into a totally different neighborhood and treated horribly. My mother was on those buses. And so horribly. Her stories that she tells about learning in a coat room when she was in that first segregated class, spit on, hit, kicked, like horribly. And she's darker skin, like, oh man, couldn't imagine.
And then we got to remember that they have community meetings during hours of people working. So the most valuable people the most valuable voices that need to be heard are at work. Those are the ones who are morally concerned. The ones that the hours that they have are the ones who either they can't get to work, they can't get there because they have to work that night shift, so they're trying to sleep in. So then the ones, you know, so it's a lot of things that we're dealing with when it comes to why the kids today don't get what we got yesterday, because there's a lot of things that has been in play. But as us moving forward, that knows, they said those who know better do better, and it's to whom is much given is much required of. So as we've been required of the things that we should do, first thing we have to do is acknowledge the problem. Once we acknowledge the problem, within the problem is the answer, lies the answer. So if television is the problem, then what offsets to television? Parenting one-on-one. We need to get back to one-on-one basic training, basic discipline at home, basic structure. Create that thing. When we was growing up, you couldn't eat and put your elbows on the table. You got smacked for the lack of etiquette that you was doing in the house. That was etiquette. They were teaching you etiquette. They were teaching you how to don't talk with food in your mouth, because when you talk, you're gonna spit food on somebody else's or spit in someone else's plate trying to talk. So there was rules in place that the children today they're not inheriting what we're supposed to pass down as an inheritance.
But are they not inheriting it because we didn't necessarily like it when it was done for us? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm going to do something different because, right? And I don't really like how that is. I didn't like how that made me feel, so I'm going to treat my kids differently. You know what I mean? And then now they're spoiled brats, and you're like, well, dang. Yeah. I had to work hard for this stuff. What's going on?
Just right before you said what you were saying, my mind was going through trying to get a response to what he said, and it just clicked in. And this is when I go back to that piece about the single homes and then we don't. I just wish someone could we don't have any resemblance of a system of order as it applies to melanated people, particularly African Americans or whatever you want to call yourself, those of African descent. We don't have any of those kinds of things in place A lot of them we thought by implementing certain rules and regulations we'd get them, but to me it's never panned out to be that way. We don't have enough control. We shouldn't have issues with our kids in school right now. They should, to me, one of the biggest things. Why should we have to bust our kids out to where Europeans are? And the main reason is because they're not going to take their kids and bust them into us because they know that the systems are inferior, the buildings are inferior, the books that come into our systems are usually not the ones it needs to be. But we have never really sat down as a people in this nation and looked at that in any kind of reality. We had organizations, WACP, urban leagues, all these. But if you look at all those non-existent operations now, even though they're still in the telephone book, they haven't been able to do whatever needs to get done. And we don't talk about those things. We just go on because we have the strength and the will and the blessings from the Creator, keep on dealing with the not able to and proving that we can. That always puzzles me.
And in the busing thing, they have been busing. I'm just going off of what from my experience when I was going to school. They was busing the white kids from out west down north, and because they had mixed schools. So they was busing them. Now, but the parents that had money and that had or that was involved in their children's life more so will put them in. They would do things to get them into the schools closer to their homes, or put them in private schools. That was their and as well as some of the blacks when they had good money, they would put their kids in private schools and stuff like that. So there has been one of those things, but I think, like you said, the integration has been one of the biggest problems that we had in our community, and I think that's one of the things that hurt us far-fetched and then because we forgot to deal with ourselves. We forgot about us as we was trying to intermingle, and I don't think that I think that once we stop talking about us and start talking about how we can help us rise, because even if we are coming together as a collective and we want to unite with others, every race is going to look out for its own first. That even when the Bible was speaking about the Israel, Jesus told the Samaritan lady that I didn't come to save, I came from my own choice. Then he gave a reference on a dog. He was talking about the mother. He was talking about how he gonna take care of his own fur, how they take care of his own fur, and then we'll branch out to others. And I think that we forget that part. And I think that's what happens when we're dealing with us. Not because we want to say that we want to be ignorant towards others, because that's where sometimes where it comes off as we try to be ignorant. I think when we get away from the ignorant part and to say, you know what, there are some issues that we have amongst ourselves that we have to deal with, just like your own home and your own family. You can't go over and try to help somebody else's family when your family's out of whack
or non-existent.
So how can you be relevant to saving someone else's family if your house is out of order? So that's all that saying is saying. It's not saying to be ignorant.
One of the biggest reasons why they implemented the junior high concept was that they were recognizing, particularly as it applies to their measurement device for success in sports. When you have, and like I said, Omaha is such a beautiful test market, but I know the cities are larger than that. This may cause issues. But when you look at the junior high situation, and when they implemented the junior high situation, what that did is that they gave them another measuring device to make sure that the principal part of the high school wouldn't have issues as far as I'm sure it came in curriculum and learning, but it was more obvious in sports that there was a predominance of one thing happening as opposed to being unilateral. We may think that only thing that was important that our kids got good grades, but that didn't, with the European population, good grades were normal anyway. They never had to be concerned about that. But when it got to the point where the sports were being so dominated over one to begin to affect the mental attitude of the kids that affected their grades, they had to shift and change all those kinds of things around. And we are so pushed forward to be a part of their system as opposed to making sure that our system is operational, that we leave out the little small things. Sports is an additional thing to the curriculum. But to us, we don't see a whole lot of scholars on television. We don't see a whole lot of doctors on television. We see a whole lot of us making a whole lot of money playing sports. And so the emphasis is changed, but we are so wrapped up in being a part of this system that we don't really recognize those places where we have the advantage, and if used in those advantage in a proper manner, will give us much more leverage in those other kind of areas. And that to me has always been a problem, and I don't see any change in it today. When I look at some of the things that are happening in junior high schools, it's unbelievable right now. I always use here locally, Horace Mann. You got out Horace Mann, you think you're invincible. You know, I mean, it's just nothing works no more.
Yeah. So what is your thoughts?
I'm just listening.
So Carl Stokes, can you hear us? The topic for today is, what did we have growing up that our children need more of today? So I just want to make sure you can hear us.
Yeah, let us know, bro. That's my brother from Chicago.
I want to read this post. Do you know who Coy Leray is? She's a singer, little young girl. She's got to be maybe 21, 22. She posted this post. I finally found it, but it says, I don't understand how our generation don't know how to cook. I don't want what y'all cooking in the air fryer. Pull out them good old scratched up pans, put on some 2000 R&B, and let's get busy, people. I do not care about that innovative air fryer. Cook my stuff on the stove. And I can agree with this. I mean, there's a generation that cannot make greens. Like, they cannot do a traditional Thanksgiving. When you think of Thanksgiving food and that meal, they cannot cook a traditional. They don't know how to make a sweet potato pie from scratch. And I'm saying this, but I haven't taught my child how to. This is what I have taught her, though, the mix. I'll put it all together and I'll say, okay, taste it. You know what I mean? But to be like, I don't believe that Tiffany will be able to go in, and I think she'll be like, okay, I need 1 cup of this. Like, I don't cook like that. I'm like, this goes here, this goes there. You know what I mean? But my baby would be like, how much do I need to put in there, Mom? Like, she would have to measure it out. I'm not like that.
Direction.
Yes.
Hey, so Carl, so you said you can't hear us. You saying you can't hear us at all, or we sounded low? Can y'all hear us? Please let us know. But what was you going to say?
No, I was just going to say that I think it's more of a matter of lower expectations towards our young people today than what used to be. Again, you know, as you stated, there was a time where yes sir and no sir was mandatory. Yes ma'am, no ma'am was mandatory. You walk in someone's house and speak, mandatory. Now we've allowed our children so much freedom of expression, that they've taken it way to the left. Meaning that there's nothing wrong with children. There's nothing to the fact that they're disrespectful. Not that there's anything wrong with children expressing themselves, because you want them to be able to learn how to express themselves properly.
Yeah. When they come into your house, a boy coming to the house to meet you is the first time. Pants shouldn't be hanging down, and you see his drawers. Right.
And then they're not giving you eye contact. They're not, you know, and then not only that, we were raised, we addressed people's parents by their last names.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so. There was no first name stuff.
No, and grandma so-and-so.
And it's like, you know, it's like, I mean, even to this day, I mean, I have aunts that first thing out my mouth is Aunt so-and-so.
Has to be.
Yeah.
Or they'll check you.
Uncle so-and-so. Or, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, there was respect back then that's missing very much so today.
So do you think that do you think that stopped? And I'm just throwing this out there. Y'all can correct me if I'm incorrect. I think that stopped with the single mother teaching, because I noticed that most of the single mothers did not like being disciplined, so they didn't go discipline their children. Most single mothers didn't like the yes sir, no ma'am, or like to be called not because they always thought that was old. They don't even like to be called grandma. They want to be called grandma or all these other little bull.
TT, peaches,
all these things.
It's so ridiculous.
All these things that won't.
Because the grandma got young.
Because it makes them feel like they're old and they want
the new generation.
The new generation.
Yes.
So our generation, we didn't mind that.
Right.
You know, I'm talking about the generation after us.
Yeah.
But then there was some of our generation that stopped that, which started translating that to their children, which now we have a generation that doesn't like it. Because I don't want to say it, but I know in my family, I seen it happen, transition right in front of my face from the people that was raised in the same household I was raised in.
Yeah.
That took it personal.
Yeah.
And then decided they not going to do it.
Right.
So now, when their kids is out of control or have no respect or have no discipline, you know, now their kids is looking for that. Same, just like we seen it at the family giving at my mom's thing. One of my nieces was arguing about how she wanted her son to be addressed, and her mom was going back and forth about it. And her mom would not listen to what her daughter was saying about her own child. This is where it messes up. This is where it messes us up at. You know what I mean? And this is why we, as a people, have to live. Like we said last time, boundaries.
Yes.
Respect each other's boundaries.
Yes.
Regardless if that's your grandkids or it's your kid, respect the person's boundary.
Right.
Help them raise their children the way they want it raised.
Right.
When we grew up, I couldn't go over here. I couldn't get mad at my mom, cuss my mom, and then go over to your house and think I'm gonna spend the night without your mom checking me and telling me
Go back and
go
apologize.
back home and apologize to your mom.
Fix that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you cannot stay the night over here and think you just gonna come over here and think your mom might say, you know what, I'm gonna let you spend the night, calm down, but you're going back over there tomorrow and you're gonna apologize to your mom.
Right.
They work together as a unit.
Right.
That was community.
Yes.
That was the village that we had.
Yeah, that was a village.
That was the thing that the kids are missing today.
Yes.
We have a hesitancy to say absence of a male in the household. We'll say single parents, which automatically equates the woman by herself. Okay, when we say single parent, we ain't thinking about a man running the household. Okay, it is such a consistent development of our infrastructure historically, and definitely right now. I bring up this thing about the DMC, the disproportionate minority contact, what they're doing with our kids coming out of foster care, particularly males. It to me, and I always challenge folks to prove me wrong, and I wish you could. The system is genocidally causing for us not to be able to operate under the American dream, because the American dream speaks of a family. And a family ain't a woman and her kids. Okay? It's a mother and a father and the offspring. When we talk, because we have to relate from our experience and our existence and our norm, that it don't work like that. And in that same vein, because we are put in that kind of situation generationally, we don't have time within the period that we have to try to make changes in that situation. We ain't got time to court. Okay? We don't have time to be in an environment where you have the ability to communicate with the opposite sex on a normal plane to see if you have things that are compatible, or if there's a group of us trying to do the same kinds of things to develop. We're so much in a hustle, that's all we can do is hustle. And until that time, and the outcome of that hustle is our women running the house and our men being mentally and physically incarcerated. And if we don't, and until the time that we start working on those things, But when we start working on those things, then we're going to throw the scale out of balance. No, we're going to put the scale in the balance because it's out of balance right now.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Work
Yes.
on it.
Okay.
Right.
Your
And
balance.
what we have to do is that we can't bring it to a norm. That ain't going to take care of it.
No.
We got to go up above where their consciousness is because their consciousness already shows that they only going to go so far.
For sure.
All right. And we have the genius, all right, to do that. That's why they keep us constantly oppressed. They can't afford to take their hands out from around our necks.
I want to answer.
So, wait, can I jump in real quick
Yeah,
and
go
then come with the question? So so we don't get too far behind, but Cherise says that it's still important to have structure in your household regardless of the situation. So although
Who said that?
Cherise,
Who's she?
you know Cherise, who comes up here often. Now she is talking about those single parent homes, those single mother homes. We can still have structure
Yeah.
in our homes, and we do. A lot of us do.
No. You ain't got
So
a
let's-
choice.
That no choice.
No choice.
Or we will get ran over.
Right.
They're already bigger than us.
Right.
Yes.
All right. That's
So
why
we
the-
have
That's why the women run
Yes.
our community.
This is true.
Okay? And we've been involved in that ridiculous, and I don't say ridiculous because of our women, it's just ridiculous because it's not naturally correct.
It's not naturally correct. I
Okay?
agree
It's
with
out
that.
of balance.
Correct.
And as
And a lot of
long
us
as we
didn't
keep
have that.
allowing those kind of things to happen,
I like
Add
that word
to
right there.
family.
I like that word right there.
it's
You said it.
allow, right?
Mhm.
Right, because it's not a matter of can't fix.
That's true.
It's a matter of won't fix.
Well, Lee Jackson
Okay.
says
That's my age.
discipline
That's
is
my
structure.
age. I'm glad that you still have that belief, and that's why I come. I'll keep that belief. From where I'm at right now,
Yeah.
Almost
all right?
80. We got about a month. What was your question? I'm sorry. I
All the
jumped in.
blessings to y'all.
Well, I mean, I like everything that you said. It's correct. And I like the fact that we recognize that there's a problem, but it's crazy that you recognize there's a problem. It's like going to the doctor and recognize that you got an ailment. So you go to the doctor and you say, "Hey, doc, I got this ailment." Doctor says, "Okay, this is what you do to address the ailment. Take this 3 times a day,
Mhm.
okay, till it's gone,
Mhm.
and the ailment will fade, okay, or go away, okay, you'll be cured, okay." But what we do, we sit, we talk, just like we're doing right now, right? And we take in just enough to say, "Whoa, I feel better now." I'm not going to take the rest of it.
That's a pew baby.
You
We call
said-
it pews.
you said what I'm
Sit
saying?
in that church.
There you go. There you go.
Pew
You
baby.
feel me?
Sit on the
Okay.
pew.
And see, and that's what I'm saying is that we we'll have a conversation just long enough.
Mm.
We'll talk about it just long enough. We'll acknowledge it just long enough. But we're not committed to the change, the process.
Because it's work.
Because what you're saying, and what you said earlier, you said right now we're out of balance.
Mhm.
You said we can't bring it to equal. He says you actually have to go above.
Right. That's
Okay,
work.
and that's work. Okay, and it's like we know that this work needs to be done.
Yeah.
We talk about this work being done. People are complaining about the fact that the work is not done. But guess what? The majority are not doing the work. You got maybe very small percentage of those who are trying to do the work.
20%.
I was
20, yeah, I was gonna say
30.
20. I was gonna say 20 because it's that 80%.
Ah,
It's the 20 versus the 80%ers
wow.
that 20% doing the work and 80% just kind of riding along.
Let me put a little piece in there.
Wait a minute. Lee Jackson says we do not love ourselves enough to make those changes.
Yes.
But I think the 20% does love themselves enough, Lee. I just don't know if we can bear the 80%.
And I want to say, to add to what he was saying, is that the 3 C's are very important to any achievement. 3 C's. And actually there's 4 C's. But there's 3 C's I'm gonna give you. That's how you commit to something, how you stay consistent, and the type of communication you have with one another. which will give you the bigger C, which is called character. Because with those 3 C's, if you implement those 3 C's, it demonstrates your character. So then that will give you your 5 P's, which is proper preparation prevents poor performance. How we properly prepare for certain things, it will prevent the poor performances that we are seeing in our community.
Right.
So when we're dealing with and addressing issues, we have to always remember the 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, and why are we going to be beyond above the call of duty? And when you understand who you are, where you came from, or where you're at, what you need to do to fix it,
Yep.
why you need to fix it.
Yep.
See, then you're implementing the 5 W's.
And a beautiful.
What are your 4 C's again?
Hold on,
What are your 4 C's again?
Committing,
Mhm.
consistency,
Mhm.
communication.
Did you say communication before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear.
He said communication. But the thing is that with everything you just said, then there's an H,
Mm-hmm.
the how.
The how.
Yes.
In other words, but see, you have everything else, you can endure the how.
Yes.
Okay? It's when you don't have everything else that you struggle with the how.
That's true.
Okay? Because you can't get to that character formation without the
Stressing about
commitment,
everything else. Yeah.
without the consistency, and without the communication.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to communicate. Well, I ain't trying to hear all that. That's taking on. No. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
There's no consistency.
Because it's microwave
Well,
society. I want it now.
I won't feel like it. Right? In other words,
Well, I want it to happen right now.
Now.
yes, right. That's the lack of discipline.
Yes.
I recognized when I was 15 that we as a people have to be able to, because it's the only consistent mechanism that works for us, is communicate. That's why we never have been able to get our hands on any kind of communication systems until the 60s. By that time, there were at least 3 generations that were, as far as being able to communicate, were non-proficient. That's taking into consideration even our educational systems. There are very few schools that are in cities that are all one ethnicity. In bigger cities where you have 30 high schools, you might have 3 that are dealing with ethnicity. And out of those 3, 2 of them are mixed with Spanish-speaking people also. Mm-hmm. All right? We have not, and they made it against the law for us to learn for years. We don't realize how inadequate we are as it applies to having abilities to communicate. I.e., Brother Allen is going through these trips that he's going through right now. As far as he's a multi-millionaire, he puts a license in to get it expanded, and they tell him he can't do that. And don't give him a reason why he can't do that, because it ain't like he don't have the money. But we don't have time enough to focus on an issue. The issue that we have a hard time keeping it in our memory because we don't have enough communication outside of our own sphere to be stimulated or giving alternatives on what to do. There's no reason in the world why we should be in the situation we're in. There's no reason in the world why our children in the school systems that they're in have to get bused all the way across the world as opposed to right there in their own community. And then they have the audacity to make us believe it is to our benefit to have our kids go out sitting next to their kids, even though there's no one around to perceive on how they're doing. And there's been no increase in our, what do you call them, tests you take, ACT tests? Mm-hmm. No significant tests across the board as far as African Americans compared to European Americans. And in fact, the Spanish-speaking people have gone above us in the time that they have been into the situation.
I want to add to what you said, but television or radio, whatever, those type of communication. The first line of communication starts in the home. And when the parent stops and lacking, or the family lacks the communication fiber of how it transmit that communication amongst to its youth, because this is what we call inheritance. When you learn how to do whatever you've been through, you try to prevent your child from going through. That's what you pass down. That's called an inheritance. You pass down something that you want to make sure your children don't have to go through. Now they're gonna be the prodigal son and daughter. They're gonna want to experience life for themselves, which is fine. But it says what it says in the scriptures. If you rear a child, what? Right.
When they're young.
When they're young,
When they're old, they will not depart.
They will not depart from that. They might stray away, but they know when they're gonna hear a voice in their head. They're gonna know where to go back to.
What is the issue that I always bring up?
The single parent homes and the men in prison.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So why would you come in with that?
because
I'm not
even
disrespect.
I'm glad you did, because even in a single parent home, there's still uncles, there's still big brothers,
Should be.
there's still cousins. There's somebody that can pick up the slack. There's neighbors. That's why they say there's a village. Yes, we have men in prison. Some of the men need to be where they at, because half of the men ain't mentally stable to be out here to even function in the community, because they are causing more harm in the community than they are trying to uplift the community. So there's a place for them guys. But then the guys who are in there falsely accused, yes, they need to be out. And then some of them been in there for so long, they became barbaric. So therefore, they can't even structuralize themselves out here and try to live in a civilized society, because they have lived barbarically for so long. Only those who is not mentally encaged, who is free when they in there, even though they mentally incarcerated, physically incarcerated. You ain't got too many of those in there. So we have to be careful, because there's a fine line between the mental state.
Those who are free in their mind, though they're physically incarcerated.
Yes.
You say that we don't have too many people that are in a bad mental state that are in prison?
No, we don't have too many people who are strong enough in their minds while they're in prison to be free in their minds, but yet, even though they're physically incarcerated.
That's why I keep bringing up the situation. There's enough in there that whatever percentage out here is, if we have 50% of those out here, it ain't nowhere close to enough.
Yeah, but that's but we're talking. Okay, I agree with what you're saying, but I always have to look back. I always have to go back into the word. We can't, if we annihilate if we shoot the T off of the can, we have can. And both we know that we are sharpshooters. We can shoot the T off.
If you have 4 people, if you have 4 people that have to make a decision about what's going to happen to the rest of the world, and 3 of them people are ignorant,
Yes.
what's your chances of getting the right answer out on how to stop us from getting shot up over the world?
We still got one.
You got
Okay.
one. Is
One
enough to get
is
out
better
there.
than nothing at all.
But see,
It's
I'm
in 300s.
going to say this, and it's not disrespectful. We've been at this so long that we see it as a normality, and come up with a reasonable answer to get us away from having to move further from our normality. Our normality is not normal. Our normality is below normal.
Sure.
It is.
So we
Agreement.
don't have any, particularly as it applies to our young people coming up now. All right. It's so bad that we think we welcome them to be able to go and get on a bus and drive out to our oppressors' area and get an education, and still don't understand why when they come back they're saying this and that.
But
Okay.
as we go back, as we keep going back there, but the thing is that it was. I hate to say this. It was y'all generation that wanted
It doesn't make any difference who the cause is.
I know I'm talking about, but it was y'all generation that wanted to
sit at the table.
to sit at the table
Sure.
and eat the poisoned food and to eat and then go and get the poison books.
But can I get to Lee Jackson?
I'm just saying.
before
I'm
we
not
get too
saying.
far
I'm not
down?
saying it negative.
No,
You
he's
see what I
too
mean?
much. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm
let
sorry.
me.
We're
This
gonna
is
get on
true.
that.
We'll get on it because he wants to address that now.
We're gonna stop
So
that.
Lee Jackson.
Excuse us, we should
You're
go.
fine. Lee Jackson says we have to be able to handle truth. We've been lied to for so long that we are okay with self-hate.
Yes.
He also says, well, who started the school system? It was created to be what they want it to be, not who truly should be. So I wanted to throw that in before we get on to the seat at the table. That y'all pushed for, the MLK had to, we want to drink out that water fountain too. We want to sit at your table too.
Let's go back to the
We
first
want to
one.
have your
But
restaurant
the
too.
overall goal was really not to sit at the table. The overall goal was
To
not
be seen.
really
We wanted to be
seen
and
as
accepted.
equals.
Yeah, we wanted to
That
be
was the
seen.
goal.
Yeah.
That's what the aim
Yeah,
was for.
stop
It was
doing
not
this.
about let's drink out the same fountains, let's go to the
See
same
me.
schools.
Right.
It's about being seen as equals.
Right, and they
Okay?
still didn't
You're
let
no
them
better
be
than
one
me.
man.
You know, regardless of the color of my skin, you're no better than me. I'm no better than you. We're equals. You know, that's the point. And so that's what they were going for. But the thing is that oftentimes people miss the forest because of the trees. They get to concentrating so much on individual trees that they miss the beauty of the entire forest. They miss the whole picture. You know, they get so focused on one thing they miss what's going on in the peripheral. They miss, you know, you kind of have to learn to back up from the TV so you can see the whole picture instead of standing so close and you miss everything else that's going on.
And I want to
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I want to add to that because even in the house, you have a big picture window. And as you look out the picture window, you're able to see everything that goes past. You can see a bird flying by. You can see the cars driving by. You can see the grass growing. The lilies in your yard and stuff. But guess what you did? Guess what you miss? You don't know what the temperature is out there until you go outside. So when we're dealing with civil rights movement, when we're dealing with those elements, okay, we wanted that because we've seen a bigger picture. We wanted to be equal, but we didn't know the temperature of it. And the temperature led to us being overboiled, overcooked, and annihilated through process of the food that they put in our community because they utilize their information by putting barcodes on food to know where they're shipping that food to. They gave us a school system. Now we all sit here complaining about our children is not being educated with because this is the thing that we wanted as a people. And I'm not blaming just the elders because this is North and South came together as a coalition. Because guess what? In the desegregation and segregated part, we were segregated because they didn't want to intermix because they didn't think that we were smart enough or we was going to lower their property taxes and all the things that whatever they believed at that particular time. But once we went through the process, we had federal guards guarding us to safeguard us to the schools, to the restaurants, all these things. So we had to do all that just so we can eat at their cafeteria where there's a wall built up where you can't even see someone preparing your food. That is a psychological, mental of health that we need to address that we still haven't addressed to this day.
Well, but you can look at it this way, okay? Even after all of that, civil rights movement is everything.
Yes.
Okay. And we talk about our kids in our community. Okay. And I can speak to this because I've worked in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still working it.
Yeah, still work in it. Our kids have opportunities afforded them that they don't capitalize on. They refuse to go to class.
Yeah.
They refuse to learn. Those books that they fought for to be able to read, they don't read. The fact that at one time they were not allowed to learn how to read, now they have an opportunity to learn how to read, they refuse to read. At one time they were not allowed to learn, now they're allowed to learn and they choose not to learn. It's like, wait a minute, you fought. That's the blood and sweat. People died for those freedoms.
Liberty. Yeah.
for those liberties.
Yeah.
And now the liberty has been handed to you.
Yeah,
You
take
got
it.
it available to you. You're able to go and walk around in these schools, whatever school you're at, okay? And you choose
You take it for granted.
not to learn. You know what you choose to do instead?
It's shameful.
You choose to learn the lyrics to rap music. Then choose to learn knowledge and understanding something that's gonna progress you and catapult you to a higher level.
Right.
You say, well, I'm incapable of learning that. I'm incapable of sitting in the class. But you can sit around and learn these lyrics and recite them like that. No, it's not that you can't.
Yeah.
You don't want to because
And
it's not
I-
important to you. Go ahead.
And I want to add to what he was saying too, because I think, and I'm always, because when I talk to kids and stuff in the community, because sometimes we hear them, but we don't hear them.
Sure.
And when we talk to kids, you got to ask them why they don't want to listen, why they don't want to learn in classes. They're not learning about themselves. They don't know nothing about themselves. They learned about their history, not our history. So when they say history, they put the HIS / his story, not our story. So what they're doing, and then when they teach it, every kid is fundamentally different on learning. So if this kid is more hands-on, why your classroom is curriculum is your curriculum is only back on school books when the kid is best he might be more hands-on. You create an environment for those who are able to learn from this, because all them slaves that all the technology that we have today was uneducated, and guess what? They was innovative
By necessity.
Right.
Thank you.
By necessity, and I get that. Hold on. I'll go ahead. You go first.
We are so accustomed to being in this situation that we have taken reality as we see it as our direction, as opposed to recognizing what we should do. There is no way that we should be saying what our children should do. The reason why we do that, all respect to our mothers,
Sure. I
is
know
because
the
there's
thing
no structure that any other ethnicity has been under and been able to overcome that allows for us not to think from a spiritual family unit. And I say that is because children cannot come here through osmosis. All right? They have to be brought here through the opium tube, which is fertilized by the sperm and all that together, which means that there's got to be two.
There's a light.
Indeed.
That two is not for the purpose of just to make.
That's true.
It is to create and develop. When we sit back and know that if the real number was 10 men to make the world proficient, for us to accept that we can try to do it with 3 is insanity. That kind of thinking over a long period of time, particularly when it goes through generations, doesn't become just insanity. It becomes a norm to the place that we start to thinking in that vein, not understanding that you can't do that. You can't have the kind of skew that we have. You don't go into any, I bet you if you had 10 Asian kids in the school, I bet you a dime for the donut, you had to be hard pressed to find one of them that only had one parent.
Question.
Well,
So I have a question. Go ahead. Go.
Let me get Lee Jackson in here. Lee, thank you for your comments. Lee says the worst thing we did was asking them to see us as equal. We are not equal. We are the goddesses and gods. We can never be equal. We are the aboriginal people. That's not for us. So we fought for the wrong stuff. F they school system. So wanted to get that out there from Lee.
What we respect all that premise is still based upon a male and a female.
okay.
You can't do it with just a female.
So
Is
then
that possible?
what?
Okay.
So then what can be done? Because that's not going to be changed in the next 10 years.
And
Those men in prison.
And let me give him a better understanding, because one thing we fail to realize is that small number that you're talking about is running the system right now. 1% of the rich is running this whole entire world. 8 billion people in the world. There's only 1% that's controlling everything.
it's always been that
That's
way.
a small. That's a real small
It's always
number.
been that way.
Okay, so you
That's
saying
why
that
they
you
had
saying 3
slavery,
people
keep
couldn't
that
do it.
10%.
3 people
1%,
can. So look
1%'s doing it.
and look at the prison system. It's 10,000 prisoners in the jail, and it's probably only 500 guards.
If that.
If that many.
If that.
So
If that.
what I'm just telling you, it can happen. It's just I seen a small man. I was watching Animal Kingdom, and they were showing this small man had a small little rope around a horse and an elephant, and they was giving an exercise saying, if you break this big beast mindset,
100%.
you can control that
That's it.
big old animal with that small little bitty rope.
That's it.
That rope that they can just break out of like that. But it's controlled by that small little rope.
Exactly.
And the longer that you are kept in that kind of mental slavery, the more you become acceptable to being in that kind of condition.
But see, the mental mindset is this. Get ready. The mental mindset is a fixed mindset that says I can. But a growth mindset says I can. I may not be able to yet, but I will. That's a growth mindset.
How do you acquire those?
How do you acquire
Well,
those?
let me ask, how do they become separate, and then how do you bring them back together?
How do they become separate?
How do they become separate? Obviously, in our condition, what you're saying is that our mindset has altered. That's why we're in that condition.
Well, Harriet Tubman was
Prime
the
example.
prime
I was going to get to that, but you just brought it up.
Go ahead.
She's a prime example of the one who made a big difference.
That's
okay?
why
But-
the Europeans only gave you 1 or 2 of those to show the whole thing in your history, and the number of people they
But
served.
that's
they-
what
But
they
see,
showed in our history, but
see,
it's more.
it doesn't. But see, this is the thing.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Whether it was 1 or 2 shown, the whole point is that it was possible.
It was possible.
See, that's the thing.
When
You
did
gotta.
that-
Another.
when
What I'm
did
saying.
that book come out into the system where people had been exposed to it?
Well, I'm talking about you. Okay. So if we here to antagonize each other by knowing dates and time. No, I'm just saying, because what we're trying to do, we're having a discussion, and it's a round table. That's why we keep a round table here. That's 360 degrees of understanding. So within that understanding, that means that we're facilitated information, so all of us can get a full spectrum of understanding. What we're trying to do is try to uplift, encourage, and dismantle the broken mindset. And on what we're gonna do that, we have to acknowledge one thing, and the thing that we have to acknowledge is I got a gun and I'm a sniper. I'm shooting that T off that freaking word can't. And it's aimed right in the red beam is sitting on that T, right in the cross part, right on the heart. I'm shooting that thing. And I'm aiming to kill it. T's gone. It's can now.
Obviously not. Else we wouldn't be sitting here talking every week.
No, that's why we're here.
But that's why we're here.
Because we
And
can do it.
So
But-
in that same vein, when we have situations that are very obvious, okay.
Yeah. Right.
First one that is obvious is that we don't have the traditional kinds of family structure
Yes.
that all of our basic education under Eurocentric say that you need to have in order to be proficient. Okay? If that's true and we live under their environment, and we identify that we don't have an equal balance as far as a home structure is concerned to be able to deal with our problems the same as they deal with yours, because we don't have those same kinds of family structures, then we have to remove ourselves from that table, seeing that they're not going to give us the information that's going to aid us with the shackle that we have, and figure out how we as a people are going to do that. It has been shown all the way back into the early 50s. The first thing that you need to do is separate from them.
Correct.
okay? We haven't been able to do that.
Well, all of them ain't bad.
And it don't matter whether they are or not. Those who are in control, those who handle all the communication, those who do all the things that keep us in oppression are still doing with that.
Yes.
And most of particularly black psychologists tell you you have to be more brainwashed to perpetuate a system than to be a victim of it. So they are brainwashed to the American dream, all right? And because they don't have the day-to-day kinds of things that throw them out of whack, they still have mother, father, a son and a daughter, and 3 cats and a dog.
Not all.
Well, most of them, that's they can get one. They ain't got to worry about it. All right. Now that the whole economic thing is coming down because of those 10 families in Europe that control 2/3 of the wealth, don't care anymore because they got us already in captive and ignorant, and the people that have been doing that, by them keep on doing that, are ignorant. That's why they're suffering right now. All right, the whole thing is out of whack. We don't be talking about the Native Americans. That's why I asked about the reservation. That may be the best place to be for all practical purposes. All right, we can't deal with our situation in normality because it's not normal in this time and space. You can't have the family structure the way it is, and all the men in prison and still talk about we can do this. You got enough in it.
There is a lot, but they're not all in prison. So those that are out and are available, that's where the blueprint has to come from.
Those that
if you saying it takes 10 and we only have 3, then the 3 is what's gonna have to come together and pull the weight, and then teach this one down here and raise him up to what needs to be on the blueprint. That's what's gonna have to happen. And it's gonna be just like Moses. You might not see it. We might not see it. Moses, this is what's gonna happen. Here is the promised land. And he didn't make it over there to see it. Everybody else behind him was able to see it.
And guess what?
But he kept pushing and fighting.
And Moses was a good man, and he still couldn't make it to the promised land because of disobedience. Because
they got on his nerves.
And because people got on his nerves like I didn't get on your nerves. But anyway, but to get back to the subject, our people, I ain't gonna lie, you're 100% because sometimes I come to work, I have hope, and sometimes I come to work and we're doomed.
But no problem. No problem.
No, I'm pretty sure you feel that way sometimes too.
Man,
I'm talking about it.
Sometimes I look out and I see, and I'm like, oh my
man, we're doing.
I'm like, come on now. I'm like, please.
But
but the point is that what I recognize is this though. I can never get up. I can never get up and be hopeless.
Yes.
Because as soon as I start being hopeless, guess what? I had a 6-year-old come and talk to me yesterday. Spent a whole lot of time asking me a whole lot of questions. And if I was a hopeless black man, okay, that black child, 6-year-old black child that came and spoke to me, I would have never been able to, I wouldn't have had anything to pour into his little bitty mind. Okay? And so I'm just saying is that, look, we can't afford, we cannot afford to be hopeless. We cannot afford to lay down and allow life to just walk all over us. We can't afford to sit down and lick our wounds and be like, oh, I can't. It's impossible. There's just no possible way. No, we can't do that. Why? Because the generations that are coming up under us need us. That's what we're talking about today. What can they use today that they didn't? What can they use today that they or use? What can they use today that they didn't get yesterday, or vice versa? It's like guess what? Our parents were stricter with us and had requirements. Those of us who decided we didn't like those requirements,
we made adjustments
in the system for their children, and then their children had even less standards because of the standards that were passed down to them, which weren't a lot. And then the next generation had even less standards. You see what I'm saying? Go ahead.
The reason why I'm stimulated, there's not one time that we've ever met that I haven't been stimulated. Okay? And the reason is because you can't, you know, you're talking about you don't want to be where I am and things are the same. What I'm telling you is that the thinking that you have right now, I had at your age then.
30 years ago.
All right?
Mhm.
And the thing that I am seeking are different answers than the ones that I was given then.
Mm-hmm.
All
And they're
right?
the same.
Huh?
And they're the same answer.
They're the same.
problem.
They're the same ones.
Because the blueprint was never given.
No, it's because
We had to.
it's because
Never embraced.
we don't. There are very few of. There are probably very few people that I'm gonna say this right, but I'll tell you, there aren't. I've lived in Omaha all my life. There aren't, and this is widespread. I can cut it down half of this, but I'll just show you the problem. There ain't 10 people that I can talk to and get the kind of communication that I want to get. All right? The two or three that I get communication with are at the same place. Like I said, I'll be 80 next month.
Mhm.
They're at the same place or less because they can't get any different kinds of communications. That's because the environment in Omaha is better than most places. All right? That's because the environment isn't so pressing and oppressing that we are constantly intimidated when we just walk down the streets. All right? They don't call us ins out of the car. They don't, you can't go, you can go in very few stores and they'll refuse to service you because you're this way. Okay? Like you said before, thing that you might have to worry about is if they do, they put something in it.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
All those things we've looked past. Where we're at right now is that we've got a generation, and those of us who were in, I won't be me, it was y'all, or younger than y'all, that were in gangs, that found it a necessity to kill each other just to control your blocks, had the right attitude, but was not clear on who the oppressiveness was.
Right. Right.
All right.
But
That's why the gang thing didn't last so long. All right. It may have lasted 10 years, maybe.
No,
It's still on.
Well, whatever time it took y'all to fuse it up, but the actual killing, I'll give you 15, if that. But even at that, it was in much larger cities where their ghettos were absolutely unlivable. We don't have places like that no more.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you got to remember that it was stated and it was written. It said the fields are plentiful, but the laborers are few, and many are called, but only a few are chosen.
Mm-hmm.
So those who are chosen to do what is required of them to do, that's why I said to whom is much given is much required of. So for those who was chosen are required to do for the ungrateful and the unrighteous and the selfless. That's the thing that you plead.
If you are smart enough to be able to understand the definitions of those particular characteristics that you gave. If you can identify people who have certain mental blocks because of their education or their surroundings or about their genders, then you can deal with them on their level. That's why I'm saying it's easier in Omaha. You can't go into much larger cities.
When our coaches started to say this thing, because I'll be paying attention to a lot of stuff, and I'll be watching a lot of, I'll be watching how some of the behavior scientists and psychiatrists and all the therapists and all that came up on the scene. They're telling us that we're not qualified to teach one another because this person has this degree. They did all this numerous of research, but they're out of tact and out of tune with each individual because the spiritual connection that you have with individuals, it will help you navigate people out of the situation
What
that they're in.
spiritual one you talking about?
We have a spiritual. If you're in tune with your spiritual side, and you're connected to the source, you're plugged in,
Right.
not plugged out.
Right.
When you're plugged into the source,
Right.
it enables you to deal with each individual because you are the power pack
To communicate with each individual.
You're there to you're able to energize individuals because by your experiences or by the things that you went through. No, you are. How did I meet you?
Huh?
How did I meet you? When I met you, I was energized and was able to start to do the We Us an Hour because our communication, because we was like-minded, and guess what? There was something about you. I told you. What did I tell you? You was like my grandpa, and I said you remind me of him in some aspect.
How was that?
And that connected me.
What was the main thing that you
Your stubbornness for one thing.
Stubbornness means disagreement.
Yes.
Stubbornness.
And but you went through some experiences and you knew some things that I wish I would.
That you recognized could be feasible.
Yes.
All right.
That connected us.
Right.
So therefore, that might not connect all the other children, but that might connect.
Not connecting us, getting us on the same page.
But it connected us.
Connecting means being as one.
Well,
that's connecting.
Well, I feel we're one.
No, we're on the same page. All right. Now, in that page, there are many paragraphs. All right.
That page is
depending upon the subject matter, depends upon how well it's structured and what the information is and how you receive it. Okay. I mentioned you this before, and then audience, y'all got to deal with this. We're at such a time right now that we really can't even afford to be exposed to the general audience and give them any information that may not aid them. All right?
I can feel that.
Okay? So that's why I'm so adamant about, that, like I said, it has nothing to do with our personal relationship. It's the subject matter that we're discussing. It would be very difficult for me, like I said before. I did some things with Brother King, and he had mentioned it at the Malcolm X event, and I was somewhat surprised. Just going afterwards, I had to go up and thank him because he identified in front of them that the time and the grade brings different information to the table. That's the only reason why I would do that, and to give out information and you not receive it the way that I would expect doesn't come to me as an argument. It comes to me to create a way more palatable or psychological that you will get it so that you understand what I'm saying, because there has to be a differential. All right? My thing is that the differential is in the amount of experience in the problem area that you have. Right? That's why I always say, I'm 80. You what?
53.
53. That's 27 years.
Yes.
You can do a whole lot of damage between 1 and 27.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
21 and 27.
One of the damaging things that we can do, particularly since we are talking to the masses, we talking to people that are on their deathbed and people in their cradles. Okay.
Mm-hmm. No, go ahead. No,
You mean go ahead.
No, you was I want you to finish up this.
You weren't paying no attention.
I was.
You got me.
Oh, you want to bust me out on him?
No.
You got me.
No. But that's because it's a very we know sometimes we don't realize we may have somebody's life in our hands because we ain't talking about no child's play.
Yeah.
No.
All right. We talking about people that are starving, people that are mentally ill, all kinds of ranges that may be seeking some kind of information And if they watching this because somebody told them or somebody as well said you need to watch this, whether it was for a pro or a con. So it becomes very personal. All right. We can't afford to let anyone that we think that we are aiding in this conversation be confused. That's why I always look. When it really gets bad, somebody will say something else, the numbers will drop.
Way up there.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that shows me on time.
That's
Okay. And it's a very serious situation, particularly now, because the oppressing mechanism, which are basic Eurocentric, are in a betwichment financially. All right, because all the same with what's the name of the guy who was president before his thing about running again?
Trump. Mm-hmm.
Did y'all ever look at Trump's programs? No, you might not be old enough. You remember when he used to have a television show on before he became?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you watch it, Apprentice? All right. Why did you watch it? He wasn't giving Europeans no break at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And he was the only European that was able to do that, and nobody could knock him out of the box. All right? That shows that not only because of his wealth, he has a lot of political power, which also must mean he has some kinds of spiritual powers also. And in looking at those kinds of things, that's kind of a aid, because our problems aren't going to be solved by us. It's going to be those who are constituency with them that realize that what they're doing is not good for them or their children, particularly if they're Europeans, and they're going to have to alter it. We as a people are going to have to learn how to make things much more palatable for us and ours, and it ain't going to be behind playing games and doing other kinds of silly kind of things if we are oppressed. But we don't even know at this time what oppression really is. You know, it ain't like slavery. It ain't like segregation. There's some places you can go to a store now, they might look at you funny. When you go around, you look up at the camera, they're going to follow you around still because you black, thinking that just because you black, their job description say they got to follow, you find black comes in, follow them around on the camera. Those kinds of things are still in place. And if we're going to be a mechanism to communicate to the people, those kind of realities that are being brought to place, we are not in a good position at all right now. At all.
You had something to say.
Because of our women and because of the men in prison.
Yeah.
That's my whole conjecture.
And I agree that there's a lot of single parents, single homes, and I do agree that there's a lot of men in prison. But I also believe there is villages out here that needs to be more. They have to be more hands-on.
Has to be what?
Well, more hands-on.
You said,
what's your definition of a village?
You said something earlier, and that was having lives.
Mm-hmm.
Being responsible, you have lives.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you're right. Okay. Which speaks to what I was speaking to earlier. And that is, I can't afford to be weak-minded. I can't afford to be of a quitting mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I can't afford. Why? Because someone's always watching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Just like that 6-year-old child that walked up to me.
Mm-hmm.
If I had been of a quitting mindset, when he showed me his little game that had he showed me a little house. He said, "Oh, this is my house." And then he showed me the vault in the living room. And then he opened the vault. He pressed the button, the vault opens up. He said, "See, that's my gold inside." And I asked him this. I said, "You know what the biggest vault there is? You know what the biggest vault is?" And he said, "What's that?" I said, "Your hat's on it right now." Okay? This is the biggest vault we have. We got to be mindful of what we put into it. We got to be mindful of how it's poured into. That is what's going on in our communities today.
Mm-hmm.
We say that slavery doesn't exist. Oh, it very much so exists today. You know why? Because there are no more chains on our hands or on our feet. The chains are on our minds. That's the worst shackles that there are.
There's enough men
so,
that got shackled to make a difference.
But what I'm saying is, as you talk about the things that are issues, I'm not saying those things are issues because they are. Okay? But it's a matter of, instead of talking about it, what is the community going to do about it? You recognize it as a problem. Yeah, you give the information. You've given the information. When you say our men are in prison, single parent home. Okay, now what are we going to do about it? You see what I'm saying? Are we going to stop? Are we going to stop? Are we going to stop being single parent homes? Okay.
No.
Are we going to stop running around having babies here, babies there, babies there, babies there, run every place you set your hat, that's your home. You know what I'm saying is that's speaking to responsibility. That's speaking to a higher level of character. That's speaking to a level of commitment. That's speaking to a level of like you said, development of character and communication. That's speaking to boundaries and all those things. In other words, there's a whole lot of things. It's the whole purpose of this show. There's a whole lot of things that have to be changed and addressed. A whole lot of things. But guess what? You need people to bring about those changes. Okay? Maybe those people right now are a few. Okay, maybe you need 10, but there's only 3. Guess what? That 3 is going to have to put in some overtime then.
That's why this is important, and you hit on the main point. When I say single homes and the men in jail, there's 2 things right there. You talk about there's going to have to be a change in that. We don't have time to wait for a change because our natures are different. That's why the homosexuality in our communities, particularly amongst our women, is atrocious. All right? And it ain't got nothing to do with immorality. And it ain't got nothing, that's why I did with the women on the first end. It ain't got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with nurturing. All right? Women are nurturers. All right? And if a sister's having some deep problems and she just went out, it's usually another sister's gonna come up and hug her and let her know we can get this done. We can move on, whatever. Depending upon where their mental state is and how much the environment is not intimidating them, is them going too far or whatever would occur. But when you have television and other mechanisms of communication like magazines that are using female homosexuality as an entertainment tool, you can't look at it just as an entertainment tool because it's still programming.
Yeah, we agree with that.
Right.
We don't disagree with that.
We never went against propaganda and commercialization. But what we having a problem with is that you had mentioned something earlier. You had mentioned something when I brought up the thing about the elephant and the horse. There's a little bitty string that pulls them, that big old beast. That beast can trample over them at any. If the beast decided it's just tired of being pulled, it's tired of being enslaved, guess what it does? It attacks its owner.
I can't equate. How are you equating that to humans?
When that Turner got tired of being
presently.
Well, it don't matter difference. I'm going back then. I'm just telling you for people. Period. Anybody. Muhammad Ali was a prime example of the newer generation. He was incarcerated because he didn't want to go to war and fight their fight. He broke away from that little bitty string that was holding him in hostage. He said, "You know what? I am not going to go fight my brothers and sisters over there."
That doesn't deal with the aspect.
It does. It makes a big difference.
You use an example that we will deal with.
That is an example.
Homosexuality.
Homosexuality. Homosexuality.
That's one aspect. That's one aspect.
But I'm telling you, the mental state.
Homosexuality is a mental state.
Yeah, but that's not what we saw. You broke up. You said homosexuality. You talked about us still being not being conducive of change. You said numerous things. Homosexuality came in one of your formats or formulas that you had spoke of. I'm saying when a man or a woman is sick and tired of seeing that little bitty noose, that little bitty strap, telling them how to move and where to go. And when they tired, guess what they do? They fight and they kill. And guess what they have to do to that animal? They end up killing it. Because they said they attacked the human.
We've been physically shackled and mentally shackled, and it ain't brought us to that perspective yet.
There's people breaking away. We breaking away with it. We just broke away from it. That's why we sitting here having the We Us and Our show. Because and the viewers and people who's chiming in because they all tired of being shackled. They tired of that.
The differential in that is this is where the age factor comes in. The differential in that is me being 80 and you being 57. I'm telling you that I'm
53.
57,
53.
53. I'm giving you a little more room. You've been taking it back one. You being 53. All right. What I'm telling you is that because of my background and my experience being in communication, which has given me over the years a lot of more accessibility to a multiplicity of personalities, particularly as it applies to us as a people, that your energy and what you want to do, the challenging comes in where the reason why I do the challenging, because that's why I'm here. I'm not here to agree with you. Yeah. I'm here to throw out information that I think through my additional 37 years, I said, yeah, that additional 37 years should give me just a little more
27,
room.
actually said 28.
To see some other kinds of examples that you're going to go through that I've already been through that might give you a different perspective.
Let me jump in with Cerise, though. Cerise is going back to the single-parent homes, and she says even if the man is not in the home, you can still be present in your kids' lives. So we need action and real support.
Okay, now let me go. Okay, now let me say this. Okay, I totally agree with what you're saying because I sat back and watched tapes from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and 2000. They all saying the same thing, and no change has really. It has came, but it hasn't came because when we go to class. They give us an SAT test, right? And ACT test, and ASVAB test for the military, right? Yeah, ASVAB. So, and in them tests, you fail. And what you have to do, you have to keep taking the test till you pass it, right? So, in our history, the reason why you speaking on the things you speaking from your generation to my generation and to the generation today, we keep failing. That's why we keep going over the same test.
That's why I'm here.
And I think that's what we have to inform the people. The reason why we're here because we're not passing the test. It ain't that we can't pass the test. Maybe we're not doing enough studying. Maybe there's not enough of participating of doing research. Maybe there's not enough DNA to understand who you are to know who you are.
Or they're convinced that they can't.
The T.
They keep throwing that T on there.
That T on
so
there.
Therefore, they're like, well, what's the use? Let's just lay down and just let life run over us because we can't make a difference. There's just too few of us to make any real difference. So we might as well just give up, throw our hands in the air, and just say, forget it. We might sacrifice our wives, sacrifice our children.
Or something bigger than that. What you said last time. Maybe we lost connection with our Heavenly Father.
No, you hit the reason why I'm stimulated to keep coming back is because you don't repudiate anything I'm saying. You may not agree, okay? But then again, you don't say that I'm wrong. All right?
We agree with the single parents and the men in prison. That is true.
Then what I'm saying is that we have to alter that.
What I'm saying. I mean, what I'm saying, right. And what we're all saying is that we're not disagreeing with the facts. We're disagreeing with the solution.
Correct.
The message.
The message is okay. Here's the problems. Yes, we agree.
Give me an example.
These are problems.
One of the ones that we had.
Men in prison.
All right.
Single parent homes.
Right. That's the
no village.
Television.
That is
okay. I mean, what I'm saying.
Let me take this here. The single parent home and the men in prison, to me, is the number one situation that we need to alter.
And I get
and homosexuality.
Right. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. That is correct. Okay. But again, now that we know that, okay, now how do we motivate people to do something about it instead of we can't. There's not enough of us. There's only a percentage of us. There's so many in prison. There's not enough of us out here to make a difference. you know, or well, the web, the single parents are okay. Yeah, you got single parent, you got single parent homes or
Right.
women in homes
Right.
running homes. Okay, but that doesn't mean that okay. Well, there's no man here. Let me just quit.
Now,
No, that's
what I've done is that I've also said, because of that situation, the answer to the situation is so pervasive as far as promotional mechanisms, and what is becoming obviously visible is that our women are finding nurturement amongst themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very serious situation,
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
and it's something that needs to be addressed and aided.
Right.
There is not one organization in our community is dealing with the psychological effects of female, particularly black women, homosexuality.
Do you know?
And I can tell you the reason why.
Do you know why the We Us and Our show actually started? It actually started because I was doing a census on grassroots organizations across the United
That's the
States.
services they were bringing. You told me
Yes,
that. Yeah.
and remember I told you
Yes.
that. And when I looked at this, I did the survey, and I looked and I said, everybody's targeting the same exact thing, but there's no difference in the years that have came. It's like, in the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's like drinking poison and watching and looking to see if someone else dies.
Give me an example of one of the services that you recognize that they weren't doing.
They was targeting the children.
That's because of the money.
Thank you. So in the process, I said, you know what We Us and Ours is going to do? We're going to target what people don't want to target because they don't want to deal with adults. Parents. Ain't that what I told you when I told you? I said parents is the problem. Once we can focus on get the parents to see what they need, their input, and what their sacrifices can be, this is how we can change our community. Parents have to sacrifice.
You're using the wrong term.
What am I using?
Sacrifice is the wrong term.
The wrong term is parents.
No.
He wants you to say parent.
Well, no.
I want to
because
say
it's still parents.
mothers.
No.
No, it's parents. Because fathers are just
all of the fathers, all of the men are not in prison.
And not only
Like my
that,
ex-husband is not in prison.
yeah, and not only
You
that,
know,
just
and
because
all of the women are not gay. Like we cannot put that under
You
just because.
you can't wait until they all become gay. It is very whenever you check the media is the programmer of this country. The amount of female homosexuality that has gone across the media within the last 2 years is absolutely atrocious.
I can agree with this.
All right, now
I can agree with
that does two things.
But it's male and female.
But they show the males. You very seldom see black males, right?
No, you always say black man with a white man.
All right. Most of them, whenever you see a homosexual on TV or whatever, 7 out of 10 will be white males.
No, it's black man with a white man.
Lighter skin.
Or lighter skin black
Black
man.
man.
Yes.
Mhm.
Always. It's always interracial. That's what they show all the time. I'm just being honest.
I haven't experienced. I'll look a little closer. The majority of the media companies have always traditionally been homosexuals, as far as Hollywood and all those other kind of things. That's in their lifestyle. The atmosphere for that kind of production, whatever, white males have always been able to get jobs in those kind of areas. Now that it has become somewhat socially accepted, one of the biggest things that really teed me off is down on 24th, the Blue Line Center, where they put that gay little flag on top of the building.
Yeah.
All right.
But what I asked you earlier, I said, how do we combat television? We need to go back to what We Us and Ours said we stood for and why we came to.
You can bet anytime that we're talking this subject right now, depending on who we have, there will be some individuals who have those tendencies and they're not going to like it. There'll be some folks that know about it and they're going to talk about it. All
And
right?
then there'll be some folks that do not want to accept that all are this way, because that is not true. All of our mother homes are not, even if we have a good friend, a homegirl, that's not an intimate situation. That's not someone that I'm sexually attracted to, that I'm going to be intimate with, even if that's my good girlfriend, my homegirl. And I get what you're saying with the TV situation, television, with the media. But here's the thing, my mind, when you said something about Black women and women and this homosexuality, I go back years when there was whorehouses and pimps, and when our men were putting women together, kiss her, do this, do that. They were putting money down so that they could do this. And so this happened, right? And it was cool then, but then it stopped being cool to have the menage when the men was kicked out. So it's that kind of thing that we allow to happen. So what I'm saying is, let's go back to, that's not cool. Just because it happened doesn't mean we cannot say, hey, let's go back to no. You know what I mean? Like, it's like with me and my parenting, there are times when I could see, okay, they're all three kids. All of them have different personalities. This might work with this kid, but with that one, it's not working. So I'm realizing, hey, I got to bring this here, change that there. Like, it's like moving the temperature or the volume, or, you know what I'm saying? You remember that old school stereo? You have to do the treble this way. Yes. You know what I mean? So it's like, I got to even it out just a little bit. I got to do this just a little bit. Like, sometimes we have to make those adjustments, and that's where I'm coming from in all of this. Let's go back and make the necessary adjustments. No, we do not have the balance. Yes, the United States is male-female household, two-parent household. We know that just from the income, you know, like there are certain cultures that might have 3 and 4 generations in the home because of, hey, we're not putting too much money out here. We want to save a little bit, this, that, and the other. Makes good sense. We didn't do that. Maybe you just have one generation in there, one income. We do need the 2 incomes in the home. Because we don't have it, how can we now go forward? Prison reform, sure. Okay.
That's why I always express that the majority of the times when you see that, it is on television. It doesn't mean that we as a people, females, are all right now being gay. What I'm saying is that the mechanism itself, along with Hollywood, is leading into that direction. All right. And if you are vulnerable to that, all right, it don't. Affection is affection. We are, women have always been nurturers. It's in them to be nurtured. That ain't got to mean that they, doing all kinds of crazy kind of things. They can't do no damage to each other. Men can do damage. Women can't do no external damage. They don't even, in prison, they've already separated a whole separate facility that they put the gay people into. They're not trying to discourage it, all right? And the number of Black males that are exposed to that is atrocious. But we don't have those kinds of situations where we have community people observing what's going on in the prisons, monitoring their activities. They're getting ready to build a brand new prison between here and Omaha. The other one's completely filled. They're gonna do what, $3 billion or $3 million? $3 billion? $3 billion to build another prison. And you think they're going to build that? They don't know it's going to be filled overnight.
But guess what?
That's every prison, though. That's system.
But guess what? How do you come back? Television and the system that we're talking about. If we don't keep speaking truth to the parent and parents, individual parent, to make them understand they need parents. That's what we're speaking to. Speaking to males and female, because we can't push blame on one without pushing blame on both.
I won't be happy until they take us off the air. I know when they take us off the air, then we get into the kinds of numbers that are affecting it.
They're not going to.
Oh, I bet.
They're not going to take us off the air, because the reality is that
I can say about 5 or 6 different things and guarantee we won't be on the air next week.
Now, they're not going to. And Sharice
I
said,
can guarantee it.
Sharice
well,
said
we're gonna talk
that you can't be talking for us either.
Who?
Sharice. She
Sharice.
said you can't be speaking for us women. So
Oh, I don't speak for no women
at all.
at all.
Okay, well, we passed our time, so it's time for us to
Do that. I
stay
crazy.
down.
Y'all ain't gonna hurt me.
Well, it was a great show. It was a great topic. You know, there was some great points, and I appreciate everybody's views, and I want everybody to give their final thoughts. Elijah, you want to give your final thoughts?
To thine own self be true. Don't pay no attention to me.
Whatever. Sharice did say much respect, though, sir. So she did want to throw that out there. My final thought, I would just say, be encouraged. You know, yes, there are things that we were taught that that we need to pass down to a generation. So I would just encourage you to get back to the basics and pass those things down. It could be something very small. Like earlier, I was talking about that that pie, like something as simple as that pie, you know. And you're right. It doesn't matter if they need the exact recipe or if they can, you know, just play it by ear or whatever and go off of their palate. So, but having that information and knowing how is key. So, just kind of getting back to the basics.
My final thought is just simply, you know, I always talk about in order to see change, you must actually be that change. So with that I will add be an active participant.
I guess my final thought is, you know, we want to give our kids something that we had back then. Now, I always say, teach them the art of respect. I think respect goes both ways. I don't think it's just children supposed to respect adults. I think adults have to respect the children and their potential growth. You know, I always say the potential growth because the children is going to grow, and they have the potential to teach you as well. But sometimes we forget that they have a voice too. But we also got to reassure them with growth, it comes great responsibility. And within that responsibility, you have to have discipline. And the scriptures always say, and I like that when it says, "To whom is much given is much required of them." So whatever's required of you, you have a great responsibility of the things that you want to do. Mothers and fathers, you have a responsibility because you brought children in this world to teach them, get them away from the television, so they won't go to prison, and there won't be so many single parent homes. Since we and if we want to combat those things, get them away from the thing that's programming them to believe that what is acceptable is a norm to them. That's how we combat. That's how we change the mindset. We get them away from parents. Don't always, if you're tired and what it is, because I know I went through that stage when I had my son, when I was going to school. I worked and was going to school. I didn't have time to deal with my son, so I would give him the television. I did. I'm a victim of that and guilty of that. My child was victim of that, and I was guilty of that, as I say. So it's our duty is to get off our lazy selves or tired self and make provision so they won't have to look towards TV to influence them for the behavior or the choices that they make. That's how we combat that. That's how we shoot the T off the can't, and make it a can.
Internet, tablets.
It is more
that's
than
the television.
They don't make good babysitters.
No, they don't. And they don't make good babysitters. All they do is just keep their attention for them to minds to wander wild and think that they can do whatever they're doing on the
You don't
game.
feel their mind, something else or someone else will.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I watch them play those video games and shooting and stuff and all that, so they think they can go out here and get away with the things that they're doing on the tablets and stuff. So yes, parents, please, take more interest in, invest more into your children. They are the new stakeholders of this world. We Us and Ours is not just a word. They're not just words. They are action steps. So please remember that. Love, life, loyalty.
Sheree says we are human. Parenting is hard. It is. And
A rich man's world.